The call came at 7:43 a.m. on a Tuesday, 6 months and 8 days after they restructured my role. Klaus Brenner, with a heavy German accent, very polite. Mr. Morrison, we have identified a major problem with Keystone Steel's compliance status. Are you available to talk? I was sitting with coffee in my small office above O'Sullivan's pub, watching the sun come up over the Pittsburgh Steel District. 6 months before, I'd been Keystone's compliance officer. Now I was about to learn they had made a $285 million error. My name is Hugh Morrison, 48, and I have been keeping steel manufacturing companies legally compliant for 10 years. Before that, I spent 16 years in the Army Corps of Engineers making sure dams held and bridges stayed standing. Same idea, different uniform. When something fails in civil engineering, communities get hurt. When compliance fails in steel manufacturing, companies collapse. The day that started this whole problem was also a Tuesday. Austin Caldwell walked into our quarterly safety meeting and called my compliance team legacy friction with old operational overhead. I knew right then Keystone Steel was headed for trouble. Austin had that entitled MBA energy you see everywhere now. Expensive suit, Apple Watch, and the kind of confidence that comes from never really failing at anything important. CEO's nephew, newly made VP of Digital Transformation, whatever that was supposed to mean, in a 98-year-old steel manufacturing company. He didn't shake hands when he was introduced. He just waved his fingers and used words like disruptive innovation and operational agility while drinking a 15-green smoothie like he had created efficiency himself. Nobody asked him to present that day. Nobody stopped him either. He clicked through a PowerPoint called Streamlining Legacy Functions, Phase 1. Phase 1, as it turned out, was cutting my department. I had been Keystone's named SOC2 compliance officer for 10 years. That meant 10 years of building safety systems from zero, watching regulatory changes move through steel manufacturing like storms, documenting every worst-case scenario. The EPA, OSHA, and DOT could throw at us. I had 4 external audits with 0 violations. My file cabinets were organized like an army system. Everything labeled, dated, cross-referenced. Austin didn't even know what SOC 2 meant. I saw him Google it during the meeting. That morning, he stood there smiling with his uncle's company credit card, called compliance an old support function, and suggested we automate oversight using AI tools. My department was unnecessary, he said, overstaffed. My $72,000 salary plus $10,500 in benefits removed. That's $82,500 in yearly savings, he said proudly. Almost a full marketing budget increase. Someone actually clapped. I didn't. I just closed my pen and asked, "Are we finished here?" Austin walked out with his spreadsheet and a satisfied little smile. I went back to my office and opened a new binder. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even surprise. It was protocol, a military habit. When someone is about to make a serious mistake, you document everything and prepare for damage control. I started saving files. Every access login, every compliance title, every legal document where my name was listed as responsible. Most people at Keystone didn't know our entire regulatory system still required my official signature. Every quarterly filing, every safety certification, every audit response had Ho Morrison listed as primary contact. No replacement had been named. Nobody could replace me without board approval and formal reassignment documents filed within 21 calendar days. But Austin didn't know that. His uncle Charles, the CEO, probably didn't know either. At first, I thought someone would slow things down. Maybe HR would question it. Maybe Charles, who once called me the guy who keeps us out of federal prison, would say something. But nothing happened. HR sent the reclassification documents 4 days later. My new title: Senior Administrative Coordinator. My security access was reduced. My invites to leadership meetings vanished overnight. I just nodded. No complaints. I even congratulated Austin when he talked about reaching his first efficiency target. He gave me a thumbs up and called me Hugh M. So I printed the original SOC2 designation letter. the one signed by the board in 2019, and emailed it to my personal account with a timestamp. Then I printed 2 copies. One went into my home file cabinet, the other into a binder labeled Regulatory Continuity, Archive Only, and quietly put it in the legal storage room. 4th shelf, left side. I didn't tell anyone. People think revenge has to be loud. Dramatic exits and angry speeches about not being valued. But nobody thinks about a landmine until someone steps on it. The real key was in Section 12.3 of our Business Continuity Plan, a rule I had added 4 years earlier after watching a competitor get hit with $3.8 million in fines for bad compliance handoffs. It said that any change to the named compliance officer must be officially reassigned by board resolution within 21 calendar days, or the designation becomes legally invalid from the vacancy date. Steel manufacturing compliance fines start at $8,000 per day for small violations. After 90 days, they rise to $25,000 per day. The numbers grow fast. Austin had no idea. Legal didn't check. Charles just approved the efficiency report without reading the details. 6 weeks after the restructuring, I submitted my resignation. Simple and clean. Effective. 14 days from today, I will be leaving my position at Keystone Steel Manufacturing. That was it. No drama, no exit demands, no company-wide email about being undervalued. They processed it like normal paperwork and cut off my access by the end of the day. The IT request was so rushed they spelled my name wrong and forgot to update the compliance registry. My son Danny called that night to check on me. He's a junior at Carnegie Mellon studying mechanical engineering. Smart kid, smarter than me in many ways, but he got my attention to detail. Dad, are you sure about this? What about my tuition? Spring semester is coming. Trust me, son, this will work out. Your old man didn't spend 16 years in the Army Corps without learning how to plan ahead. Sounds like you have a plan. Just following proper procedure. Sometimes that's enough. That weekend, I updated my profile on the Federal Compliance Registry, setting my certification to active executive designation relinquished, no replacement filed, effective day 28. Then I registered as an independent consultant focused on crisis compliance recovery. 24 hours later, my phone started ringing. By Monday, I had 4 serious offers. 2 from law firms handling regulatory cases, 1 from a small consulting group, and 1 from a German steel company that specialized in buying American mid-size manufacturers. That last one made me smile. Across town, Keystone kept running like nothing was wrong. No exit process, no knowledge transfer, no training for a replacement. Austin was already working on phase 2 of his plan. Charles started talking about the company's new agility mindset in industry interviews. Nobody saw the compliance clock moving toward day 22. I set up my office above O'Sullivan's Pub on Liberty Avenue. 2 desks, a coffee machine that only worked sometimes, and a view of the old J&L Steelworks. Rent was $900 a month. My first contract paid $275 per hour. The numbers worked better than my old salary. Every morning I went downstairs for coffee from Patrick, an old Irish man who had run the place for 35 years. We talked about the Steelers, the weather, and sometimes business. He knew I left Keystone, but he didn't ask questions. Military men understand when someone doesn't want to talk about work. You know, Hugh, Patrick said one morning, my grandfather worked the blast furnaces at Homestead. 43 years. Never missed a day. When they tore those stacks down, he said something I never forgot. What did he say? The young ones think they can build better than the old ones, but they never ask why the old ones built it that way in the first place. Day 43. Of Keystone's compliance violation, I got a call from a steel fabrication company in Ohio. Their compliance officer had left without notice, and they were facing a regulatory audit in 5 weeks. Full panic. I quoted them $340 per hour plus expenses for a 4-week emergency project, They agreed before I even finished my sentence. Day 67, I was on a flight to Texas helping a steel processing facility deal with an EPA investigation. Their former compliance team had missed a filing deadline. Austin looked like he might be sick. Surely we can fix this. Bring Hugh back, correct the paperwork, and move forward. Trust has been damaged, Dr. Weber replied. Mr. Morrison provided proper documentation and clear procedures. Your organization chose to ignore them. This was not a simple mistake. This was a failure of corporate governance. The Braun team had packed up and left by noon. Their final action was to formally inform Keystone's board that due diligence had revealed serious compliance violations and misrepresentation of regulatory status. The press release went out Monday morning. Braun Steel Industries withdraws from Keystone Steel acquisition due to unresolved regulatory compliance issues. Keystone's stock opened down 19% and continued to fall throughout the day. By market close, it had dropped 33% in just one day. The business media picked up the story immediately. Headlines like "Compliance Failure Destroys $285 Deal" and "When Cost-Cutting Backfires." Tuesday morning, my phone rang again. This time, it was Dr. Weber. "Mr. Morrison? Braun Steel Industries is interested in retaining your services for a full compliance review of our North American operations. 16-month contract, $275 per hour, complete autonomy over your methods and timeline. Are you available?" I looked around my small office, the coffee maker that only worked half the time, the view of the steel district, and a stack of consulting contracts that had already tripled my old salary. "Yes, ma'am. I'm available." Day 153, Wednesday afternoon. Charles Caldwell announced his early retirement, effective immediately. The press release mentioned personal reasons and a desire to spend more time with family. The board called an emergency meeting to discuss leadership changes and operational restructuring. Austin was asked to submit his resignation by Friday. There was no press release for that. Thursday morning, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hugh, this is Austin. Hope we can connect about industry best practices. No hard feelings." I read it twice and then deleted it. The local business media had picked up the story. Pittsburgh Business Times ran a feature titled, "The $285 Million Mistake: How Keystone Steel Lost the Deal of a Lifetime." They interviewed compliance experts, corporate lawyers, and business school professors. Everyone had something to say about proper due diligence and the importance of regulatory oversight. No one interviewed me. That was fine. I had work to focus on. Danny called that weekend, excited about his acceptance into Carnegie Mellon's compliance engineering program. He had been following the Keystone story in the business news. "Dad, they're using this as a case study in my business law class. Professor says it's a perfect example of how cutting corners on compliance can destroy shareholder value. What do you think about it? That someone at Keystone knew exactly what they were doing when they wrote those procedures, and someone else chose to ignore them because they thought they knew better. Smart kid. I'm proud of you. I've been thinking about specializing in steel manufacturing compliance. Professor says the field is growing, especially with all the international acquisitions happening. Good choice. There's always demand for people who can keep companies out of trouble." 6 months later, I moved into my new office at Braun Steel Industries' North American headquarters in Pittsburgh. Corner office, 17th floor, view of the Monongahela River. My task was simple. Review compliance procedures for all Braun's U.S. steel facilities and suggest improvements. The work was familiar, but the scale was impressive. 11 manufacturing plants across 7 states, each with different regulatory requirements and local compliance challenges. Braun wanted a unified system that could handle federal oversight, state rules, and international standards all together. Keystone Steel was officially delisted from the Pittsburgh Stock Exchange. The company was sold off in parts to different buyers, none of whom wanted the compliance liability that came with the original corporate entity. The main headquarters building was leased to a tech startup. Most of the manufacturing equipment was sold to a competitor in Ohio. The final regulatory settlement was announced the following week. Keystone's insurance covered most of the $2.3 million in fines, but the company's reputation was completely damaged. Charles moved to Florida. Austin's LinkedIn profile said he was exploring new opportunities in operational excellence consulting. 1 year later, I was sitting in my Braun office reviewing the final compliance report. 11 facilities, unified procedures, 0 regulatory violations, and projected annual savings of $2.1 million through better efficiency and lower legal risk. Dr. Weber had already asked about extending my contract. Braun was expanding its U.S. operations and wanted me to help evaluate future acquisitions. My phone buzzed with a message from Danny. He had just finished his junior year and was starting a summer internship with a compliance consulting firm in Philadelphia, following in Dad's footsteps, he wrote. Turns out there really is job security in keeping people out of trouble. That evening, I walked down to O'Sullivan's for coffee. Patrick was closing up, but he poured me a cup anyway. How's the new job? He asked. Can't complain. Turns out experience is worth something after all. Funny how that works. You know what my grandfather used to say about the steel business? What was that? The man who understands why the furnace was built that way will always have work. The man who thinks he can build it better without asking why will always be looking for work. Some people spend their careers trying to be noticed. I spent mine knowing where the emergency exits were. My mistake at Keystone was thinking someone else would read the safety manual after I left. They didn't replace me. They erased me. And like any good safety system, the consequences were already built into the process. Austin had called compliance legacy friction with outdated operational costs. It turns out legacy knowledge is what keeps companies alive when regulations change, and lawyers start asking questions. Business is good, really good. It just took them $285 million to realize it.